Welcome to Critical Crime, the podcast that delves deep into the darkest corners of criminality and sheds light on compelling cases. I'm your host, Philly, and today we have a special treat for our listeners. Joining us as a featured guest is Georgina. Tell us about yourself, Georgina.
Hello, I'm Georgina, and today we're going to be talking about cases that interest us.
If you haven't already guessed, today's case is the JonBenét Ramsey murder. John Ramsey and Patsy Ramsey were the parents of JonBenét Ramsey, a 6-year-old girl who was found murdered in their home in Boulder, Colorado on December 26, 1996. Before the murder, the Ramseys were a wealthy and prominent family in Boulder. John Ramsey was a successful businessman who had made a fortune as the CEO of Access Graphics, a computer systems company that was eventually sold to Lockheed Martin.
Do you know when he sold this?
Pretty sure this happened sometime after the death, or it happened like right before the murder. I'm not really sure actually. But I'm pretty sure it happened like around the time of JonBenét's death.
Around the time of her death? So
Yeah.
After she died?
Yeah, like it probably started like right before the death, but it finished after her death. Something like that. Patsy Ramsey was a former beauty queen who had won the Miss West Virginia pageant in 1977. The couple had 3 children together, including JonBenét, who was their youngest child. The Ramseys were known for their active involvement in the Boulder community and were well liked by many of their neighbors and acquaintances. They are also known for their significant amounts of money donated for various causes over the years. However, there were some reports of tension within the family before the murder. Patsy had reportedly been struggling with cancer and depression, and there were rumors of marital strife between her and John. Additionally, there were conflicts between JonBenét and her older brother Burke. Overall, the Ramseys were a seemingly normal and affluent family before the murder of JonBenét, and their reputation and status within the community would only become more complicated and controversial in the aftermath of her death. The timeline of events surrounding the murder of JonBenét Ramsey is complex and controversial, with multiple conflicting accounts and theories. However, here is a rough timeline of events based on available information. Trigger warning is advised, as what follows contains information containing violence towards a minor. December 25th, 1996. 5 p.m. The Ramsey family attend a Christmas dinner at a friend's house. 9:30 p.m. The Ramsey family returns home and JonBenét is put to bed. Her brother Burke is also put to bed in a separate room. 10 p.m. The Ramseys go to bed. December 26th, early morning. An unknown person allegedly enters the Ramsey home and kidnaps JonBenét. 5:52 a.m. Patsy Ramsey calls 911 and reports that JonBenét has been kidnapped. She also finds the highly controversial ransom note on the staircase leading to the second floor of the house, which I'll touch more on later. 6 a.m. Officer Rick French arrives at the Ramsey home and begins searching the house. 6:10 a.m. Detective Linda Art arrives at the Ramsey home. 6:30 a.m. John Ramsey discovers JonBenét's body in the basement of the house. Her injuries consisted of strangulation to the neck and head trauma, severe head trauma. 6:45 a.m. The Boulder, Colorado police are notified of the discovery of JonBenét's body. It is worth noting that the timeline of events have been subject of much debate and controversy, with some experts questioning the accuracy of the timestamps of the 911 call and the discovery of JonBenét's body. Additionally, some investigators have raised questions about the initial police response to the crime scene, including the decision to allow John Ramsey to search the house before the police arrived. These issues have contributed to ongoing mystery surrounding the JonBenét Ramsey case. What do you think about this? How John found the body?
I think it's interesting because when your child is missing, the first thing you're going to do is probably check your house before your immediate thought is to think someone grabbed her and kidnapped her. You probably will want to check your entire house. And I think, if probably they called the police in a hurry, like in a rush, that they couldn't find their daughter. But, to someone who's skeptical of John, I really feel like it's an interesting thing that he just happened to find the body. But I think I know that police mentioned that that they had no reason to believe that she was in the house.
Yeah, like, I was listening to another podcast, and they mentioned how when John found the body, he had actually went with a friend, and they looked around the basement for a few seconds, not even long, and John just opened the door and said that he found her. He didn't even turn on the light or nothing. It's like he already knew she was in there. Because I heard that earlier that night, the police actually did check the house, and the officer did go down there, but, she was in the cellar, the highly controversial cellar, but he couldn't open the cellar door. He didn't know if it was blocked or jammed, or if it was just locked, so they just didn't go in there because, they didn't have reason to think that she would be inside the house. And then...
That's weird.
And then Linda Art just told John to go check around the house because John kept, bothering people, and he didn't know what to do with himself. So that she actually told him to start from the first floor, and he went all the way down to the basement to start off. And within a few minutes of him even going down there, he already brought her upstairs. So I think that's what a lot of people notice when they think of how John found JonBenét. It's like he was ready to get her found.
With the police there to be like, oh, so you didn't do anything because you found her body. But,
yeah, it's like...
if it...
Mm-hmm. You can go.
I was going to say, it just feels like he... Like, for someone who was looking at John in the lens of maybe he's guilty, I feel like it's pretty practical and convenient, for you to find your daughter's body while the police is there. So you can just be like, oh. And rather not have, like, the speculation of, the police not being there and be like, well, this, and this can happen. But because they were there, they'll be like, well, obviously he wouldn't try to pull anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It seemed like he was just so ready for them to find her. But since they didn't, he was like, fine, I guess I'll do it myself. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the ransom note. The ransom note found at the scene of the JonBenét Ramsey murder was unusually long and contained a number of odd features that have puzzled investigators for years. Here are some of the most notable strange aspects of the ransom note. The length of the ransom note. The ransom note was over 2.5 pages long, which is much longer than most ransom notes. What do you even think about this one, it being almost like 3 pages?
It really just feels like this supposed murderer must have had a bunch of time on their hands to write 2 pages worth of ransom notes for, a child that they were going to end up killing and putting in the basement.
Actually, believe it or not, investigators said that the ransom note would have took around 21 minutes to write.
Wow, okay.
That's a lot of time for someone to have.
That's risky. I don't think I would spend 20 minutes writing a letter. And then again, you have coupled with the fact that, they in the ransom note, it said that they were going to return the child if money was given to them, right?
Yeah, which we'll touch more on.
Yes. But again, JonBenét's body is in the basement. So the ransom note is just, it's not given.
Yeah. The unusual vocabulary. The note contains a number of words or phrases that are uncommon in everyday language, such as hence, attaché, monitor, and adequate size. It also had unusual phrasing. The note contains several instances of awkward or settled phrasing, such as, we have your daughter in our possession, instead of, we have your daughter. Also, the monetary demand. The amount of the ransom demanded was $118,000, which was an unusual sum and not a typical ransom. The weird thing about the amount, the $118,000, that was close, or if it wasn't, the same amount of money that John received earlier that year on a bonus. You remember hearing about that?
Yes, I do. And again, really convenient that this person who wrote this note knows how much of a bonus John Ramsey got. And can I just say, $118,000 as a bonus is insane money. Like, what does he do again? Computers?
Yeah, but the thing is, John was a rich man. Like, his accountants had even said that $118,000 was like pocket change for him. Like, he had millions on top of millions. And mind you, his house was like 4 stories. He had I believe he had 2 private yachts. No, 2 private jets. He had 1 yacht, and I believe he had a home in Michigan that they were gonna fly out to. Wow. So remind you, John is making a lot of money. He's probably he's like Bill Gates, or not Bill Gates. He's like maybe a Donald Trump type of rich.
It's like Jeffrey. Never mind.
Not the podcast.
Not this one.
Yeah, not this one. Lack of evidence. The Ramsey note made no demands for the Ramsey family to prove that they had access to the money requested, which is unusual in a kidnapping case. But let's be honest. Everybody knows John had the money. His house was 4 stories. He was a wealthy man. Everybody knew he was wealthy. If you were in that town, you knew he was wealthy. Also, the Ramsey note had bizarre references. The note contained references to pop culture, including the movie Dirty Harry and a line from a song by the rock band Foreigner. The handwriting. The handwriting on the Ramsey note was found to be similar to Patsy Ramsey, but this has been contested by many experts. That is the most convenient thing. Like, are you telling me that the note was written in the Ramsey home? It took 21 minutes. There was 2 drafts of it, if not more, and it was used with pen and ink inside the house? Let's be honest. Gina, they wrote that note.
Were they able to, like, wipe down for fingerprints? Did they find any fingerprints, like, around the area where the note could have been written?
The fingerprints wouldn't have mattered. So much people were inside that house.
Oh, that's right.
Any DNA that they found inside that house, fingerprints, saliva, touch, all that was already contaminated. Let's be honest. Everything was contaminated. Because Patsy had called her friends to come over. They never closed off the crime scene. The only thing they closed off was the rooms. Was JonBenét's room, actually. They didn't close nothing else off.
I'm trying to see if there is a good reason that Patsy had so many people over. And, like, I get, this is a very emotional time for her, obviously. And I don't blame her for, like, wanting support around her friends, but I don't know. Like, what were they expecting having all these people over plus police? I don't know.
Also, the 911 call. Actually, we'll say 911 call for the suspicious details. But let's get into some suspicious details surrounding the crime scene. The crime scene of the JonBenét Ramsey case was highly suspicious and raised many questions about the events leading up to her murder. Some of the key factors that made up the crime scene include lack of forced entry. There was no sign of forced entry into the Ramsey home, which led investigators to believe that someone with knowledge of the family or the house had been responsible for the murder. I don't even think there were footsteps found in the snow around the house.
Yeah, I don't think that was found. And, like, that was, like, one of the big things that people are like, something's going on here because why don't we see footprints?
Yeah. And then again, if there were footprints, they couldn't even prove that was from the killing because so much people came to the house.
Is there, like, a suspected point of entry if you're going down the road, the idea path of an intruder broke in? Do they have, like, a suspected point of entry in the house?
I think that there was a theory that in the basement, there was a broken window. But John had told them that the window was broken a while back. And then there were spider webs on the window. So I guess that proved that the window wasn't broken that night. But besides that, I don't think there was no forced entry. It's like they just knew how to get in.
Yeah, so it was either they left their front door open, or something within the house happened.
Yeah. But then again, they had what's it called again? A security device on their home. Like, like how ADT is and stuff. But apparently they didn't set it up that night, which isn't really too uncommon. Let's be honest. Okay. A lot of people don't set their stuff, but hey.
I'm not familiar with the technology of, like, home protection back from, like, in the 90s. You had to set it every night?
I have no idea. I'm not familiar in home protection. Just lock your door, you should be fine. But yeah. This is Colorado in 1996 in a wealthy area. So
people didn't lock their doors back then, which I find, wow.
They still don't, which is crazy. But hey, the location of the body. JonBenét's body was found in the basement of the Ramsey home with a duct tape covering her mouth and a cord around her neck. She had been struck on the head with a blunt object, which led investigators to believe she had been killed in the basement. Tampering with the crime scene. The crime scene had been tampered with before the police arrived. John Ramsey had moved JonBenét's body from the basement to the living room, potentially contaminating crucial evidence. Additionally, some experts believe that the ransom note found at the crime scene may have been written by someone in the Ramsey family, as it was written on paper from a notepad found in the house. Again, we're getting to the thing. The ransom note had to be written inside the house. Well, it was written inside the house, but who wrote it? It was too cartoony, let's be honest.
Yeah. It seems a bit like, again, if your goal is to essentially what from the ransom note, they want to say, hey, I want this money, you can have your daughter back. I find it just, one would get to the point, you would think.
Seriously, because, like, in the ransom note, again, it was something, like, highly controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I think they even made it seem like two people wrote the ransom note. Because it just didn't sound natural for one person to write it.
Mm.
I'm trying to see if... Here's the ransom note. The ransom note goes, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed. And if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instruction to the letter. That itself, a foreign faction. Like, what do you even think about a foreign faction came to America, to Colorado, to steal your daughter?
I want to know, like, I just don't, it seems very random, but I'm stuck on the fact of, if you want your daughter to see 1997, like, what? Who says that?
No one says that.
No one says that.
But, hey, it's 1996 language, so who are we to tell them what to do? Here it goes. The second line, or stanza, I guess you could say. You'll withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you'll put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange earlier delivery of the money, hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. In the letter, there's actually a few mistakes. Like, they had actually put delivery, but then they crossed it out and put pickup. Like, it just still seems suspicious because the word attaché, that's what some people in Europe would say for bag. So I guess that's the foreign faction for them.
Yeah, it's like they tried, I don't know, it seems like it wants it to make it a point that this person maybe is not American. I don't know, like to maybe, like, because again, the use of attaché just kind of reinforces the idea that, again, these are foreign people doing this, not just like some random hobo. Sorry, I don't know if that's appropriate. Just some random guy on the street.
That does make sense. But then, do you see you heard where it says between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow? Why would they put it so early if they did it in the middle of the night? How would they be well rested? How would they know that Patsy would have been up at 5:52 a.m. to call the police? Or how did you know she was up at 5 a.m.?
Who woke up first? Patsy? Patsy's the one who noticed JonBenét was missing first?
Yeah, she woke up and she was going downstairs and she saw the note on the stairs. I believe that she thought it was the housekeeper that left the note because the housekeeper had asked to borrow money from John. And I think that she thought that it was a note to John. But that doesn't make sense either because why is the housekeeper writing a 3-page note to thank you for borrowing money? That just seems too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 8 to 10 a.m., it just doesn't make sense because how would they be well rested if they just went to sleep and you're going to call them that early? How would you know they'll already be awake by then? It just doesn't seem natural. seem like it's convenient for the time it was written.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the note.
Yeah, it's not adding up.
Any deviation on my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is anyway marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found on you, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned, we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter. And if you try to outsmart us, follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a big brain. I messed up.
It's okay.
Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good common sense of yours, John. It is up to you now, John. Victory, SBTC. That just doesn't sound natural for a person, a foreign faction.
Who names their organization SBTC? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that was the letter that was written at the end.
Who names their organization? If you're like a hostage robbery type of group, why would you name yourself that? And the fact that they gave out their name as well.
Yeah, but then again, no one knows anything considering that. So, but it just doesn't seem natural. Like everything about it just seems wrong.
It feels like I'm reading a movie script of
a terrible movie
random
script.
note.
A terrible movie script.
It feels like dramatized. It feels very theaterish.
And if they're a foreign faction, how do they know anything about good Southern common sense? That's such an American thing. How would they even know that?
It's weird.
Everything about this is weird. But let's dive into the suspects. We will explore the main suspects in the JonBenét Ramsey case, as they have not been charged. Of course, John and Patsy Ramsey. JonBenét's parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, were immediately considered suspects of the case due to their unusual behavior in the hours and days following their daughter's murder. They initially refused to cooperate with police, only allowing them to search the house with a warrant, and were inconsistent in their statements about their activities in the hours leading up to JonBenét's death. I heard about something like with the accounts, something that was highly controversial. They talked about when they got home. That was one of the first things I heard that was controversial. Because John told some people that he carried her inside the house and put her to bed, and then he told other people that she was awake and that he read her a bedtime story and then put her to bed.
Two different stories.
Two complete different stories.
Yeah. Again, this is your last memory of your daughter alive, so you would think again, and this happened the previous day, literally the night before.
A few hours before.
Yeah, you would think one would remember.
But Ramsey's behavior after the murder also raised questions. Patsy Ramsey was criticized for her seemingly rehearsed demeanor during media appearances and for her decision to participate in a photo shoot with JonBenét's body in the days following her death.
What?
Apparently she took a photo shoot with JonBenét's body.
Her dead body?
Her dead body, yes. What's wrong with these people? I know.
What mother does that?
Hey. She was a pageant mom. I don't know what to tell you. But another thing that...
No, she would probably be amazing on Toddlers and Tiaras. They'd have her on there.
They'd love her. They'd love her on TLC with Dancing Moms, I think it is.
Dance Moms? Oh, yeah.
They'd love her. Oh, my gosh. But another thing I heard about the Patsy Ramsey is apparently when the police came, she still had a whole face of makeup in her clothes from the night before. So
she didn't wash her face before she went to bed that night? Or she did it in the morning before they came?
I don't think she went to bed at all. Because she still had her makeup on her. Like, that doesn't line up with everything that they mentioned. Her having her makeup on her.
True. I was gonna say, maybe she's just, like, really self-conscious about her face, that she don't want anyone to see her without makeup.
That is true.
But, again...
True.
Your daughter is dead. I don't know how prepared you'd be to do makeup.
Before we get to the next part, another thing that was controversial about the parents was the 911 call. I'm going to see if we could play the 911 call in this video. I'm not sure if we'll be able to because of copyright, but I'm going to try to play the 911 call in the video. In the 911 call, you could hear that Patsy Ramsey, she thinks she hangs up, right? And she says, "What did you do?" to somebody. And they said, "What did you find?" But
what?
You'll hear the 911 call. I'll try to play the 911 call for us in the video. But yeah, she says, "What did you do?" This after she thinks she hangs up. After she thinks she hang up, she says that. And the 911 operator was even like, her whole demeanor changed. Her whole voice changed. It just didn't sound like a mother concerned. It just sounded weird. And the person that said, "What did you find?" it sounded like a child, like Burke.
Oh.
But apparently to the timeline, or the statements given from the parents, Burke is still asleep at this time. So that's another point of confusion, I guess you could say.
Wait, did they wake him up? I mean, I guess he would have woken up when all the police and the people came over.
Yeah, it said that the police woke him up with flashlights when they entered his room. Additionally, John Ramsey's decision to move JonBenét's body from the basement to the living room before the police arrived has raised questions about potential tampering with the crime scene. Despite the surrounding suspicion, the Ramseys were never formally charged with the crime. A grand jury actually voted to indict the couple on charges of child abuse, resulting in death. The grand jury heard testimony from various witnesses, including members of the Ramsey family, friends, and law enforcement officials. The proceedings were conducted in secret, as is typical in grand jury cases, to ensure the integrity of the investigation and to protect the privacy of those involved. After months of deliberation, the grand jury issued a report in October 1999. However, the contents of the report were not made public and no charges were filed against anyone in connection with JonBenét's murder. The circumstances surrounding the grand jury involvement in the Ramsey case remained a point of contention and speculation. Some believe the grand jury's decision not to indict anyone indicated a lack of evidence, while others argue that the grand jury may have been hampered by a lack of clarity or direction from the prosecution. The issue with the part with the prosecution, a lot of people feel like the attorney just didn't want to charge them, because we all know John was a rich man. If you're rich, you're powerful. Let's be honest. If you're rich, you're powerful. You can get away with anything. So a lot of people feel like John was able to pay off the attorney.
Does anyone know if John and the district attorney knew each other?
Of course they knew each other. John had paid, I believe they said he paid for a few campaigns for re-election for them, for a lot of the officials.
Okay, hot take, but maybe someone who's donated to your campaign shouldn't be allowed to take on the case of whether this person should be charged.
Let's be honest. Actually, we're gonna save that for the theories. Let's save that for the theories.
Okay.
Our next suspect is Burke Ramsey. Who didn't see that coming? JonBenét's older brother, Burke, was 9 years old at the time of his sister's murder. While he was initially cleared as a suspect, some experts have suggested that Burke may have been responsible for JonBenét's death, and that his parents may have covered up his involvement in the crime. Supporters of this theory point to a few factors, including Burke's unusual behavior in the days and weeks after the murder, his apparent lack of emotion during media appearances, and evidence that suggests JonBenét may have been hit over the head with a flashlight, a possible weapon that Burke was known to play with. Something I hear a lot about that part of him being a suspect, they think that he did it because he was probably, because, they both love pineapples. I'm not sure if you know, JonBenét was found with pineapples in her stomach at the time of her death. That wasn't fully digested. And there was pineapples and I think sweet tea or something like that on the counter when the police arrived. So some people think that maybe Burke was playing with his toys, eating his fruits, because Burke even admitted himself that he had snuck downstairs to play with his train set in the basement. What was JonBenét found in the basement? But yeah, a lot of people feel like maybe JonBenét was trying to play with her older brother, because let's be honest, younger siblings love to bother the older ones. Let's be honest.
I can attest. I have 2 older brothers, and my favorite thing to do is bother them.
And so what if Burke maybe got annoyed with JonBenét and he just hit her?
Yeah, no. Again, I have 2 older brothers fighting, and they did not like me. So this is not surprising to me that, he would have hit her over some pineapples. That's how kids and siblings are.
Despite these suspicions, Burke has never been charged with the crime. In 2016, he filed a $750 million lawsuit against CBS, claiming that a documentary about the case had falsely accused him of the murder. The lawsuit was settled out of court in 2019 for an undisclosed amount. This theory down by the cover, or this suspect, I don't really believe in it, but it is a suspect, and I have to be unbiased when it comes to these theories and suspects. So, the Santa Claus impersonator. In the days leading up to JonBenét's murder.
For Burke, don't a lot of people also use his Dr. Phil interview against him?
Yeah, they really do, because the doctor, you could tell something's off.
He kept smiling, I remember, is what.
Something's clearly off with Burke. Not to say that there's anything wrong with him, but he just seems so unemotional.
Again, I don't know, maybe if it was just the way he was raised, in the aftermath of his sister's death.
True. But there's also an interview when he was younger. I can't really put it in the video because of copyright. I'm going to see if it lets me. But you could see that Burke, he just seems so off about it. When he's describing the murder, he's saying maybe she was stabbed. Maybe she was hit over the head. Maybe she's just stuff about how she died.
Can I tell them what happened?
They more than likely did. But, he just seemed like it just didn't bother him that much. Off to the next suspect. The Santa Claus impersonator. In the days leading up to JonBenét's murder, the Ramsey family hosted a Christmas party at their home. One of the guests was a man named Bill McReynolds, who worked as a department store Santa Claus and was invited to the party to play Santa for the children. McReynolds became a suspect of the case after it was revealed that he had written a play in which a young girl is kidnapped and murdered, and that he had given JonBenét a card with a message reading, "You will receive a special gift after Christmas." However, no concrete evidence was ever found linking McReynolds to the crime, and he died in 2002. The thing with McReynolds, I just don't see him doing it. I don't see he has reason to do it.
Yeah, and also, are we also suspecting that he's the one who wrote the ransom note as well?
Apparently so. Doesn't make sense, right?
I just find all the they just don't make sense. Who knows? Maybe this murderer just did want, the narrative to be fuzzed. It's just really nothing makes sense. You have one place going this one way, and then you have another place going that way, but they're supposed to connect together. It just doesn't make sense.
But to end the suspects off, over the years, several other potential suspects have been named in connection with JonBenét's murder. One of these is a former housekeeper named Linda Hoffman Pugh, who had been fired by the Ramseys shortly before the murder and had reportedly made threatening comments about the family. Another potential suspect is a man named John Mark Carr, who confessed to the murder in 2006, but was later found to have no connection to the crime. Some experts believe that Mark Carr may have falsely confessed in order to gain attention and fame. That's what's sick. John Mark Carr was a sick man. If you do research on him.
Didn't he literally have, like, child pornography charges on him?
Yes, that's why he was hiding. He was actually hiding, I think, in Thailand. I believe it was Thailand. He was hiding in Thailand on charges of child pornography.
And he's just, like, unwell because you know you got child pornography charges on you, and the first thing you do is confess to the police that you murdered this little girl. Is he the guy who freaking, who said that he wanted his ashes, a glitter that JonBenét gave him to be mixed in with his ashes?
That was the Santa Claus impersonator.
Was? Freak.
Relating to the case, Linda Art, a former detective with the Boulder Police Department, which was one of the initial investigators assigned to the JonBenét Ramsey case. Linda Arndt has shared her perspective on the case in interviews and statements over the years. Arndt had been critical of the handling of the investigation, expressing concerns about the initial response and the lack of coordination among law enforcement agencies involved. She has also spoken about her interaction with the Ramseys during the investigation. Arndt believed that the Ramsey family, including JonBenét's parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, were not fully cooperative with the investigation and that their behavior raised suspicion. She has stated that she felt there was more to be uncovered in the case and that she believes the truth has yet to be revealed. What do you think about that? One of the lead detectives thinks that the family has something to do with it.
Well, I feel like if anyone's gonna know or have the best, hypothesis as to what happened, I feel like it would be the detective. Did she ever, push back on the district attorney for him not wanting to file charges against him?
I don't even think that she was able to, because who would have listened, if we're being honest?
Yeah, because literally, district attorneys, have way too much power, in my opinion. They literally, no, too much power for you to, decide. You have, a case. We are trying to investigate whether this child was murdered by her parents, and you can just decide that you don't want to investigate them. And also the fact, again, John was paying for his campaign.
Let's be honest. This case was completely mishandled by investigators. Everything was mishandled. The crime scene was mishandled. The interviews were mishandled. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but when they brought the parents in for an interview again, the parents said that they'll only come in on one condition. What do you think that condition was?
That they can't be charged with what they're saying?
No, the condition was, one of the many conditions was that the police give them the transcript of the previous interview so they can know what they said, so they didn't conflict themselves. And the police gave them the transcripts.
Who is leading this investigation? Why were they allowed to request transcripts and keep them?
1996 investigation, I guess, for you. But then again, this is Boulder, Colorado.
You don't go to Colorado. I don't know what they're doing over there.
What's your beef with Colorado? You don't like Boulder City?
No, surrounded by mountains. All the elevations got people all loopy.
Let's end it off. Today, we examined the JonBenét Ramsey case, a tragic and perplexing crime that continues to captivate and confound investigators and public alike. From a bizarre ransom note to the suspicious behavior of the Ramsey family, the case is filled with strange and unsettling details that have led to countless theories and conjecture. While the investigation has been plagued with flaws and missteps over the years, the case remains unsolved and leaving many questions unanswered. Any things you'd like to mention before we leave?
I just feel bad for JonBenét. She was exploited just all her short little life. And now she's dead. I don't trust. I feel like those parents should have gotten indicted for. I don't know if they could have proven that they killed her, if the case was strong enough, but at least something.
Who do you think did it?
Honestly, I've always tried not to think that her parents did it, because it's it's like really fucked up. Because if you want to go on the Burke theory that he accidentally killed her, they would also, what did they have? I remember she was found with strangulation marks, no?
Yeah, strangulation.
What was her official cause of death?
They say that she was strangulated, but then she also had a severe head trauma. So they believe that the head trauma came first and the strangulation came after.
So blunt force trauma is what was inflicted to her while she was alive, and then strangulation could have been what caused her death?
Yeah.
Or it was? Okay.
Because she had blood vessels in her eyes that popped, and that occurs when you're being strangulated.
Oh. Yeah, so...
And she had finger marks on her neck, proving that she tried to fight and rip the cord off her neck at the time.
Okay, so do we think that Burke strangled her as well as struck her in the head?
My theory is that maybe Burke had got upset with her. He hit her over the head with like a heavy flashlight or something, because there was a flashlight found at the scene that apparently the family claimed that they didn't own. So apparently, I guess that's the only thing the killer broke in and brought with him. But I feel like Burke maybe hit her over the head. She fell, passed out. The parents came. They're like, "Oh no, our child's dead." But they feel like they had to protect Burke because they might as well save one if they're already gonna lose one. And that one of the parents, probably Patsy. Actually, it could have been either one, Patsy or John, because John was in the military. He knew how to make the knots that was used on the garrote that choked her out. So either
he was ex-military?
Yeah, he was ex-military.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them choked her out. They didn't realize that she was still alive. But then she started coming to, but you can't let her live after you almost killed her. Like, you gotta finish the job. You really have to.
Jesus Christ.
And then also, after the crime, John tried to fly to Atlanta to his lawyer. So, clearly they had something to do with it, but...
I think the parents are so, like, just really fishy. Like, you're just... And I know there's not, like, one definite way to grieve, especially, like, for your child dying in a horrific way. But they're just really weird. Like, Patsy, her handwriting was tested, right? And it was inconclusive?
Yes, some experts said it was yes, some experts said it was inconclusive. But I don't think anyone ever said it was a no.
Okay. Yeah, so, and then again with the practice note, and then John finding her body.
John finding her body that fast. Because the friend John went with even said that he only looked around for like less than a minute, and then he opened the door, and it was in a cellar in the middle of the night, so you know it's dark. And she's covered under a blanket. And she was like, John didn't even turn on the light yet. He just opened the door and immediately said, there she is. And then he turned on the light. So it's like John rushed down there to get her.
I wondered if, well, I was trying to think back, like, again, like, try to think of another view of, again, like, Burke, again, if he was the one who could have hurt her and killed her. Do you think their favorite was JonBenét? I feel like if their favorite was JonBenét over Burke, I feel like they'd be mad and be like, it's like, I don't know. Do we know if she was, like, a favorite of them?
Well,
like,
I think she was, because, let's be honest, she was named after the dad. The dad's full name was JonBenét Ramsey, and her name was JonBenét Ramsey. Burke's name wasn't considered at all. And Burke was the first son of them together.
Wait, they had more kids than that?
They had 3 kids together, and John, I believe he had about 7 kids in total. He had kids in the previous... John had a previous marriage where he had other kids, but they were all adults.
Oh. Wait, so what's the third, the one with John and Patsy?
It was another daughter.
Was she younger? Older?
She was older. JonBenét was the youngest.
Oh, so there was the oldest, so the sister is the oldest. And
yeah.
Then John, or then
Burke,
and then John.
Yeah. Mhm.
Where was the sister then? Where's she at?
She was an adult, I believe. Yes, she was an adult.
Oh. Dang. Yeah. So if she's the baby of the family, and she's like their little pageant queen, I would assume like they'd be her favorite, and they would, I don't know. I was really like, maybe they would let John or let Burke take the fall.
Yeah, but then again, you just lost one kid. I don't think you want to lose another one. So it's like, gotta do whatever you can to protect at least the one child, the youngest. Your new youngest child.
It's weird. I don't like this. It gives me bad vibes.
Everything about this is weird. But then again, that's why it's unsolved. Tune in next week for next week's episode of Critical Crime. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you very much for viewing us. Goodbye.